Hi, I'm Dee Mommy. I'm the founder of Mint on Demand, and today I'm joined by Zoe. Zoe is a nutritional therapist, and she's going to be talking to us today about how we can potentially increase our energy levels, take care of our immune system, and a little bit about our mental health through diet and supplementation. Thanks for joining us, Zoe.
Thank you very much, Dee, for the introduction, and delighted to join you today on the podcast.
My first question is, what are your top 3 recommendations for the average adult who's looking to increase their energy levels, improve their immune system, and maybe use diet and nutrition, as well as maybe supplementation to improve their mental health?
Right, okay. Well, obviously diet and nutrition are key to overall health, but 2 things that we really need to get dialed in, even before we're looking at food and nutrition, is how are we sleeping? Because that's just so important to our overall well-being. And then also, what are our stress levels? So, because if we're highly stressed, we're not sleeping, regardless of what nutrition you put in your body, you're going to be in such a sort of what we call a sympathetic dominant state. So where the nervous system's all over the place, that your rate of absorption of anything that you put in the body is going to be so much less. So really making sure that we get sort of 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night, minimum of 6.5 hours sleep, and making sure our stress levels, we do everything we can to sort of mitigate that stress, are so critical to our overall health, because all of those things, they unbalance, they create insulin spikes, they create high cortisol, we have too much adrenaline, we are ghrelin and our leptin, so our appetite control, that all goes out of sync. So number 1, get that dialed in.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at our overall nutrition, again, we just need to eliminate all our refined sugars, because again, and also maybe processed grains as well, if that's a problem. Because again, our absorption when we have processed foods is just minimized. So anything that we take in is just not going to be as bioavailable to us. Now, in terms of the top nutrients, if we're looking at our energy and our immune system and our mental health, then first of all, probably we look at vitamin D. And we get most of our vitamin D from moderate daily sun exposure. So although there are vitamin Ds found in foods like oily fish and milk and eggs and mushrooms as a vegan source, it's not really adequate to top up our maximum daily intake of vitamin D, which should be between about 400 and 800 IUs of vitamin D a day.
That's the maximum, sorry.
That's what would be a good overall daily intake. It's not a maximum dose. And vitamin D is what we call a fat-soluble vitamin. So what that means is that it is not, it's stored in fat in the tissue, and it's not automatically eliminated. So this is something that can be toxic at high levels. So it's not anything that we want to overdose on. So I always recommend to clients with vitamin D, go to the doctor, get a baseline level of what your vitamin D levels are before you start thinking of supplementing to any great extent. Because we should have an optimal vitamin D of about 60 to 70 nanomoles per litre. So the doctor can test that for you. And what we tend to find in the UK is people can have chronically low levels of around 30, even lower, sometimes 20, because they've had no daily sunshine exposure.
Can I ask, at this point in time, getting to the doctor might be quite difficult for something like this. So yes. Are there any online resources that people can go to? Maybe an online test where they can have this done?
Certainly, you can have your vitamins tested. Right. Whereby if you go to a private lab, they can send you, things where you can get those levels tested.
Okay.
But yes, you're right. At the moment, it is a bit of a challenge going to the doctor. So I think you have to make a little bit of an assumption that if you've had no sun exposure over the last 3 or 4 months,
Yeah.
and you perhaps are not consuming milk products, maybe because you choose not to, or you're not using supplemental vitamin D in foods, then you are going to be fairly low. So you can make a fairly, I think, rational assumption. So you
When
would
you
be
say, sorry, when you say sun exposure, would you say 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
30 minutes a day, arms exposed, legs exposed,
Yeah.
no SPF, because that blocks the vitamin D as well. So you want to do it obviously beginning of the day. You don't want to be burning in the sun, or end of the day when the sun's rays are low, but you're getting enough exposure without obviously the detrimental effect that sun exposure can give you. So so that would be a good recommendation. Now, if you have got chronically low levels, so in the sort of 30 to 40 nanomoles per litre, then a daily dose, you can go up to about 2,000 IUs a day, and that's fairly safe to get your vitamin D levels up to that nice optimal 60 to 75 range. But as a daily maintenance dose, then once your vitamin levels are good, then 400 to 500 IUs a day is what you would recommend. And you would get that adequately from 20 to 30 minutes sun exposure. Plus, if you were eating a little bit of oily fish, or, having some mushrooms, or, some other foods.
And is there another resource where, obviously aside from the sunlight, is there another resource where, say somebody has had the initial check done, can they check the nutritional value of any of those foods somewhere online?
Yes, so you can go to a chronometer. That's quite a useful way of checking how much daily intake you're getting. So www.chronometer.com, you can type in your foods in there, and that will give you a very good idea of your sort of daily amounts, whether you're hitting the recommended daily allowance of any vitamin as well as vitamin D. They're so important to the immune system and our mental health, the production of dopamine, serotonin, very, very important, and to hormone production. They're absolutely vital to hormone production as well. So,
and that's for both men and women, obviously.
Yes, for men and women. Yeah, exactly. Very important vitamin to get into an optimal range. And like you say, in the UK, we can be chronically low. Even, people who are using SPF all day, every day, they can still be chronically low, because that does stop the UVB ray required for that synthesis within the skin.
So just to try and go out in the sun, obviously not when it's the middle of the day, when it's at its strongest, so you can avoid having to use anything. So aside from vitamin D, is there anything else that you would recommend in terms of nutrients?
Definitely vitamin C and zinc are really key to immune health and energy production, and mental health as well. People think vitamin D is all about mental health, but vitamin C is very important too. You cannot make dopamine, your happy hormone, you cannot make serotonin without adequate vitamin C levels. So the vitamin C is really, really important, and it's one of those vitamins that's quite difficult to dose, in the sense that the recommended daily allowance, or our minimum requirement to stop us getting scurvy and skin conditions and everything else, is actually quite low. It's only it's about 80 milligrams a day, what we tend to find is, if you're not feeling well, and that could be the start of an infection, or just generally not feeling well, then the body's tissue requirement for vitamin C goes up hugely. And we know this because we don't make vitamin C ourselves, but lots of animals do. And if they look, let's say, at a goat, a goat actually has about the same body weight as us, and they're able to measure. Yeah, exactly. It's quite scary, isn't it? But they're actually able to measure the vitamin C levels of a goat under stress, and they produce their own vitamin C, and they then produce under stress up to 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C a day.
Oh wow!
So that shows how much vitamin C is required when the body's either sick, under stress, you're smoking, or you're doing other detrimental things to yourself. So,
and are you able to quantify what that is in terms of, so could you give an example of a certain type of food that maybe contains that much vitamin C in?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're, we know now that we recommend between 5 fruit and vegetables a day is the minimum requirement. I think the recommendation now seems to be between 8 and 10 a day, portion sizes. And so 5 portions of vitamin C containing foods, so mainly fruits and vegetables, particularly citrus fruits, they're extremely high, would give you about 300 to 400 milligrams of vitamin C a day. So way over the RDA requirement.
Right.
But then the question is, are you under stress? Are you not feeling well?
Yeah.
And this is where vitamin C supplementation can become extremely handy.
To raise those levels.
To raise those levels over and above what you could potentially get in food. Because your requirement may be even higher than, feasibly, even if you were consuming lots of fruits and veg. So what I say to people who are unwell is you can supplement up to about 2 grams a day, or what I call up to bowel tolerance, because vitamin C has a rather detrimental effect on the bowel. And you will get diarrhea if you're taking too much, and obviously you don't want to be doing that, because obviously that's going to lead to dehydration potentially, and obviously something that you wouldn't want to do. So people, you'll soon know. So for some people that's 1,000 milligrams. They'll think, oh no, I need to back off a bit. For some people can take up to 4 milligrams, and still. If you're not feeling well, you will still be okay. But that's something that's a little bit down to the individual. And then when you become well again, you'll know that you need to back down off that dose and just go back to your standard 3 to 4 milligrams a day, which again is you can get from your fruits and veg, and is well over your RDA recommended amount. So
just see how your body responds to it.
Exactly. And like I said, it's one of those strange vitamins where certainly stress, being unwell, dramatically increases the tissue requirement for vitamin C.
Okay. And is there anything more that you can say about zinc as well? Because you mentioned zinc earlier for being quite
well, zinc and vitamin C are very synergistic, so it's good to take the two together because they help in that absorption.
Right.
And zinc again can be chronically low, massively impacts the immune system, but is actually quite hard to get into the cell, so it becomes really effective. So zinc is usually found in things like shellfish, massively high in oysters. Oysters is the biggest, has the largest amount of zinc, but I'm not terribly keen on taking oysters personally, but meat, shellfish, any kind of seafood. It's also found in nuts and seeds and beans, from a vegan standpoint.
I think at this point in time, they might be a bit more easily sourceable for most people.
Yes. The only thing that you have to appreciate with zinc from if you're getting it from vegan source is that sometimes the zinc containing foods are bound up with phytate, and phytate prevents the absorption. So what I always say to people who are vegan and vegetarian when they look at their chronometer for zinc is to make sure perhaps they're getting double the dose of the zinc that would be an RDA recommendation, which I'll talk about in a minute, just so that they know that they're if there's any sort of malabsorption from the phytate, that's not being detrimental to their zinc level.
Okay.
So the RDA recommendation for zinc is about between 11 and 18 milligrams. There's a little bit of variation between gender here. But you can dose for a therapeutic dose up to about 60 milligrams a day, but you need to do it over a short period of time, not for too long.
Right.
And the reason for that is it can prevent the absorption of iron, which can be very critical, especially for women who maybe have got an iron absorption problem. So
Yeah.
definitely take your iron, not at the same time if you're supplementing iron as to when you're taking your zinc. Take your zinc with your vitamin C. And so there's some, and also if you take a high dose for a long period of time, will unbalance your copper ratios as well. So fine therapeutically, if you're getting sick, feeling a cold coming on, infection, whatever, ramp up your zinc to between 60 and 80 milligrams a day. You can do that safely, but only over a period of time. And then back
so
down.
not long term.
Definitely not long term
use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there might be people who are thinking about maybe changing their diet at this point in time, maybe going a little bit more organic, introducing supplements potentially. Is there any advice that you would give regarding organic food and taking supplements as well in general?
Yeah. 100% the quality of our food is paramount importance. In terms of organic food, it has been shown, I think, on testing that organic fruits and vegetables have a higher vitamin content generally. And in terms of animal protein, if it's organic, grass-fed, it has better omega-3 to omega-6 ratios, which we know is kind of better. It's really important to have that good omega-3, omega-6 ratio. So that's what they have definitely found on testing. So, and obviously then you haven't got pesticides, you haven't got all of that stuff that we really do not want to be consuming in any great quantity if it's organic. Obviously sometimes it's challenging to get hold of. If we can't get hold of organic vegetables, then obviously clearly we need to be washing our vegetables carefully. And the other point with the vitamin content is quite often in supermarkets, we all know that some vegetables and fruits are artificially ripened.
Right.
So we have absolutely no clue how long that transportation process has been.
Yeah.
So to actually, even though we think we're doing really well, we're having our 5 to 8 fruits and vegetables a day, we really can't quantify. We can go onto the chronometer and type it all in and it says, yeah, fantastic, you've exceeded your RDA levels of all these vitamins. But we actually really don't know, because we know that vitamin C, for example, degrades massively and oxidizes in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So if our bananas have been traveling 2 months from where they were grown, we actually really have no clue how much vitamin C content is in that banana that we're eating. So if we can't get hold of organic, then my recommendation is to get a hold of local produce, that we have a much better idea that it's reasonably fresh. A local farmer's market, or if you can get asparagus or your raspberries from a field that hopefully hasn't had too much spraying, then obviously food is always the best option, because it contains all of the cofactors. So vitamin C will contain the necessary magnesium and zinc and potassium and everything else that we require. So although we have talked about supplements earlier with the vitamin C, vitamin D and zinc, we're talking about them in isolation. And food is not consumed in isolation. It's consumed with all of the different vitamins and minerals and everything else that's required for maximum absorption. But like you say, sadly today, sorry, Dee.
I guess it's difficult, because I think I read a fact the other day that only 3% of the food that's available to us in this country is actually organic, because there's such little agricultural land that's, I guess, used for organic farming. So then to try and buy organic is obviously very, very difficult. But like you said, if you try and purchase locally, or grow your own. If you have a little window box, or even if you live in a flat and you've got only a little balcony, it's amazing what you can grow in pots. You can grow your herbs, or you can grow potatoes or carrots in quite small areas. So most people can grow a little bit of their own, and then they know exactly. You can buy the organic soil then, and you know exactly
where your food's been sourced. But yeah, exactly, it can be a real challenge to get organic foods. And if you go online, you can see the sort of dirty dozen, as they call it.
Yeah.
The dirty dozen, which are the foods that, if they are non-organic, then they are going to be the worst to consume. So, obviously things like avocado, bananas that have a reasonably thick skin, if they're not organic, well, at least there's some protection between the food that you're eating and the skin. So it's always worth having a look at the dirty dozen. Strawberries are not good, spinach is not good, unorganic, because again, they have a big surface area, very small, thin skin, and all the, if there's pesticides, then it's much more easy to absorb into those fruits and vegetables. So, ideally we should be able to not need supplementation. But again, I saw another survey where they'd looked at strawberries now and compared to, let's say, 20 years ago, and for one strawberry now, for the strawberry, one strawberry that you'd been consuming 20 years ago, you now need to eat a whole box full to get that same vitamin C content. So again, that's probably why they've said to recommend to now have 8 to 10 vegetables a day, because probably because the vitamin content, sadly, due to our farming practices and many other things, has reduced so much. Just not the same. Yeah. So, what do we do to make sure that we're just getting at least the minimum? And I think, to be fair, everybody probably just needs a standard multivitamin, multimineral tablet a day. Okay. Just to make sure that they're hitting the RDAs of all of those key nutrients. And then in terms of further supplementation, I think it should be on a need-to basis. So, if you're supplementing because you have a particular health condition and you need to maximize those doses, then you should do it on a deficiency basis. And you can really only determine that by vitamin testing. Okay. And again, plasma, so if you go to the doctor and you ask for vitamin tests, the plasma level of vitamins is not entirely accurate. So it really has to be an intracellular test, which unfortunately can only be done in a private lab.
So by plasma testing, are you talking about blood testing?
Yes.
Okay.
So your vitamin C in the blood, your vitamin B levels in the blood are not entirely accurate. So it'll give you a reasonable idea, but it's not the same as seeing an intracellular vitamin assessment. So
can you explain a little bit more about what that means? What that involves?
It means that they're actually testing the level within the cell, within every cell, not just the blood and a generalized reading. So the two are a bit different. And plus the fact the doctor will probably only test you if you're lucky. Definitely test your vitamin D under the NHS. Will probably test your B12. May, if you beg, test your B6. So it's not going to give you a full spectrum, obviously, with routine tests.
So I guess recently some people have changed their lifestyles in a few different ways. Is there any advice or tips that you've got for anyone that may have recently changed their exercise habits at all, or if they're experiencing any changes in their mood, maybe, whether it's short term or on an ongoing basis? Is there anything that you have to advise them?
Right, okay. Exercise, yes, very, very crucial to our overall health. We talked about the key factor of stress and sleep, and how important and impactful they are. But actually, exercise improves both of those things. If we've had a good workout, we generally tend to sleep better, and we definitely find our stress levels diminishing with exercise.
Also, what I'm wondering is there any specific advice you would give to anyone of just what to be aware of if they are starting a new exercise regime, what they need to be aware of in terms of changing, if they need to at all, changing their diet and being aware of supplementation? So is there anything that they can do? Obviously, if you're exercising a little bit more, you're probably not going to be keeping the same diet, you might need to alter it slightly. So is there anything that you think they should just think about, maybe, if they are starting something new?
I guess it depends on the type of diet that people are following at the moment. I mean, there's a big what's the word, I suppose, push to go onto a more ketogenic template these days, where people are in terms of the sort of ratios between the macronutrients, they're eating a bit more fat and proteins compared to carbohydrate.
Right.
And I'm not advocating people have a strictly ketogenic diet at all. But what I would say about carbohydrate, in terms of what I like to do, is to have my fruit, so my sugar, my glucose, before I exercise, because that's what you need. The glucose fuels the body very efficiently. And rather than having your sort of fruit, your fruit and your sugars and then do nothing, I think it's a good idea personally to use your carbohydrates, in terms of your good carbohydrates, before you exercise.
There's obviously online resources where you can, for any individual, you can figure out what that protein amount is for you based on your body weight. So you're not going by a generic standard.
Yes, absolutely. Like you say, protein intake varies based on your body mass, everything as well. So again, there's you can look at that approximately. But I think, if you have a good couple of protein sources a day, I don't think you need to overeat protein. But obviously protein does help rebuild the muscle. You need to make sure you're getting an adequate amount. And like you say, use your carbohydrate efficiently, so the body is nicely fueled for exercise, and you're not then just storing without sugar and it's not doing anything in your body. So I think that would be my recommendation.
And is there anything that you have to recommend for anyone that might be going through different mood changes at the moment as well?
Do you mean in terms of supplementation, or do you mean
in terms of supplements, or maybe even a change to their diet? Is there anything that might help them with those increasing those serotonin levels?
Yeah, sure. Well, we talked earlier about vitamin D being so vital to the production of hormones. Vitamin C is greatly underestimated. They found that in people who are depleted of vitamin C, they have very low dopamine, and vitamin C is required for the conversion of folate, which then converts to serotonin. So you can't convert your folate to your serotonin without vitamin C. Okay. So, and B vitamins too, because that's, again, they're required for your neurological health. All of the vitamin B vitamins are key to that. So again, we need to make sure we're getting adequate amounts of vitamin B. And yeah, like you say, vitamin D, vitamin C, and then omega-3, which has been found. There's been some sort of studies which contradict a little bit, but I think generally speaking, to have really good omega-3 source is key to good neurological function. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I know for vegans and vegetarians, chia seeds, I think, are a good omega-3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Excellent source. So yeah, we just need to make sure we've got enough, and omega-3 in a DHA sense, and EPA. Again, a little bit, the conversion of what they call ALA, which is more of a vegan source, can be a bit more challenging, or you need a bit more of it. Right. So again, just need to make sure you're getting adequate amounts of that. But I think there's algae sources of DHA now even. So, there are definitely vegan sources, but it's something a vegan/vegetarian needs to be a little bit more conscious of, that they're getting enough omega-3. Yeah, and if it's chia seeds, are you eating chia seeds every day? Because you need omega-3 every day. So this is the thing, that you have to be just more prudent and make sure, go onto your chronometer. So it's a great source to see where you're measuring with each of those nutrients.
Okay, amazing, Zoe. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing all those great tips for our listeners. I'm sure that's really helped out a lot of people at this time. Is there any chance you want to share your Facebook and your YouTube for anybody that wants to follow?
Yes, certainly. I've got a growing Facebook community, which is Zoe-Holistic Health. And also there will be lots of YouTube videos coming up in the future on my YouTube channel, which is Zoe Holistic Health. So without the dash.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dee. That was very enjoyable, and hopefully will be the start of some interesting discussions on various health topics in the future.
Amazing, thank you. If anyone wants to follow us, our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram are Mint On Demand, and our website is mintondemand.co, that's .co.